now finally pursuing her dream. With multifaceted experiences on her way to growing up, she is now a professional licensed counselor associate. Additionally, Beth has advanced trainings in yoga and mindfulness and a PhD in art museum education. She has experience teaching art education, art museum education, yoga, and mindfulness in public and private schools, universities, and also to adults in various community settings. Beth has led nonprofit and for-profit businesses, and as the founder for Yogiños, Yoga for Youth, Beth is the co-creator of an adult training program and on-demand school curriculum. She's also the proud mama of three kids, two dogs, and one cat. So, without further ado, I'm excited to pass it off to Dr. Beth Reese.
Thank you so much, Crystal, and to the whole Light Festival. And I just want to say thank you for pronouncing Yogiños correctly. That just made me smile, and I just really appreciate that. And really, as I sit here today, I'm so grateful and excited to be here. And today being Juneteenth, and I'm zooming in from Houston, Texas, and I am 57 miles ish from Galveston, which is where Juneteenth and the Emancipation Proclamation was very first signed, June 19th, 1865. So it took months for the word to spread to other areas. And it took a whole year for even it to be acknowledged that as I understand, that on June 19th, 1866, that we could start to call it Juneteenth. But look, and just to show how much progress we have to make around accepting our history and really developing equality for and with Black people, people of color, people of various sexual identities, right? So if that proclamation was 1865, it took until 2021 for it to become a national holiday. So there's progress, there's a lot of work to be made, and it's part of why I'm so grateful to be here to talk about having trust in public health, because let's face it, while I sit here as I represent white privilege. You don't necessarily know my sexual identity by looking at me. So I know when I walk into a room, I represent a certain amount of privilege. And that's how it is, and it's not okay. And so as we all think about what it means to, work for ourselves, for others, and all of humankind, to build, to acknowledge what's right, what's not working with public health systems, and hopefully work with them. More partnership, more collaboration. It's going to take time, obviously. We're not on the right path yet. But so I really had to just name that as getting started in our session. And so again, grateful we could be here and take this day of Juneteenth to both honor it and look how we can continue to move forward and put into action some really important steps within our public healthcare system. So we're going to be thinking about what it is for ourselves, others. We're going to think about visual, verbal, and nonverbal communication. And I'm so happy to be here. Okay, without further ado, I'd love to hear, to know where you're zooming in from. So if you'll hop in your chat box, and if you're not familiar, the chat box, the little icon is down at the lower end of your Zoom screen. And so I already said it, but I'll just let you know, I am zooming in. Oh, I wish I could type correctly. From Houston, Texas, right? I'm so happy to be here. So if you'd like to let me know where you're zooming in from and let each other know so we can just have a sense of that, that would be great. And I'll be using the chat box from time to time in the course of our conversation together. So I'm going to share my screen. So if you see my eyes wandering, that's what's going on. Okay, so here we are. Just some slides so you don't, have to just stare at me here in my amazing office space where I get to work. So today for this beautiful festival, again, I'll be talking about how we can create and integrate with integrity. Visual, verbal, and non-communication builds trustworthiness with ourselves, others, and our public health systems. So one way I think it's really important is we come together today, or when we come into any kind of space, um, to check in with ourselves and see if we are feeling grounded and mindful. And one really easy way I like to offer of how to feel grounded and mindful is to use the phrase, may I or may we be curious, kind, present, and grounded like the earth, right? And grounded like the earth. Like, what is the earth? Like, hopefully she's steady and strong and supportive and supporting. So how can we be those things? Now, if we want to take this a step further and tie in somatic movement, soma meaning of the body, and so it can be simple intentional movements we do to help create physiologically in our nervous system what our desire is. So you can follow along with me or just watch or even imagine yourself doing this, to take those kind hands, interlace your fingers, place your hands on your head. There's a pressure point up here. And then we might say here, may we be curious, kind, imagining I'm touching the earth, which my feet are, present and grounded like the earth. So that can be a great way to start your day, start a meeting. If you're walking into a public health situation, just to check in and make sure that your nervous system is as grounded as possible, right? And then just to notice, and we'll be talking about that, noticing when the nervous system fluctuates, which leads me to talk about this concept I developed with my organization, Yogiños Yoga for Youth. And it's 3 really important steps: feel, connect, act to heal. Doesn't hurt that it rhymes. So before I go into feel, connect, act to heal, I do want to acknowledge that some of this work has come from 2 really important people in my life, and the books that they've written that I get to read. So, and if you want to jot these down, I highly recommend these 2 books. One book is by Resma Menakem, and that is My Grandmother's Hands. The second book that is like so worn and tattered and so many different notes is called Mindful of Race, and that's by Ruth King. And so, like, my conversation today is definitely impacted by their amazing gifts of intellect, of sharing, of creating. And I just want to acknowledge that and send them my sincerest gratitude. Okay, so feel, connect, act to heal. So this is really important. So feel, different than emotions, is checking in, like turning our camera lens inward, if you will, and noticing what feelings, what body sensations are showing up in our body at any given moment. And then connecting with that, right? So let's say right now I have butterflies in my stomach. I actually do. So as I notice that, that's the connect. I'm taking time to feel, I'm noticing butterflies. Well, now I connect. What are those butterflies about? Like, what's the context of where I am, or what's happening in my life that I might be having this body sensation? And are they butterflies or bumblebees, right? So mine are definitely butterflies. I'm excited, as you can probably tell from the cadence of my voice and intonation. And I hope I'm not talking too fast. So I know that those are there, and it's okay. But what if they were so strong that I felt like they were impeding me from being my best self? Well, then I can act to heal. I can do something. I might be putting my hands on my chest. There's another pressure point here. I might, if my respiration isn't already elevated, I might be able to take a breath in and exhale slowly. And in this moment, what I would like to do to act to heal to help my butterflies in my stomach, and you can join along if you like, is to do something I call the rainbow game. The rainbow game is great because it can be played anywhere, anytime. And this is a somatic mindfulness activity. So we're using our body senses to be curious, kind, present, and grounded like the earth. So if you remember from grade school, or before or after, the RGBIV, to remember what a rainbow is, what I'd like to invite us to do is very simply look around the room we're in and see if we can find the colors of the rainbow. So you might find most of the colors of the rainbow in my shirt if you're not seeing them around in your space. But what happens is while I'm noticing these colors, um, I'm being curious, kind, and present, grounded like the earth. And it helps my body settle into being right here, right now, instead of maybe thinking about, ruminating in the past. Did I get all my notes done for this presentation? Or worrying about the future, like, is this going okay? Am I going to run out of time? All those things. So just noticing colors helps me come back to this moment. It's really a really great tool for those of us who experience anxiety. It may be that you find your rainbow colors once. It may be you look for your favorite color. When I'm driving, little traffic here in Houston, I sometimes just look for and just name the colors of cars. And I have found it to be really effective. Sometimes if I'm having heightened a stress response or some emotion, I might have to play it for several minutes. And it might not take my stress level all the way down, but it might take it down a notch. And that to me is a win. All right. So let's do a little check in here and have us all try to feel, connect, act to heal with a little playful metaphor. So what I'd like to ask us to do is to just check in, and notice what's going on with your body sensations. Can you connect to those, right? So for me, it's 2:20 in the afternoon. So I'm jet lagged. So I also you might notice if you're tired, if like maybe you just had lunch and you have that heavy sensation in your belly, which makes sense. So just notice what you're feeling and then connecting, like what is going on? What is that? What is that that's happening? I'm going to stop sharing screen for a moment. So we feel, connect, and then act to heal. So what can we do to act to heal? A lot of different things we can do. We could do a counting breath. We could do setting our mindfulness up. And what I'd like to do quickly with you all is, since it is the afternoon, is to show you a way I can bring my energy up, right? And so I'd like to take you through a skill called Sand, Sea, Sky. Dear friend, mentor, and colleague, Allison Cohen, taught this to me. And you can do it going up or going down. And which way you do it would be determined on whether you want to bring your energy up. And I like to say to people, if I need to wake up, I want to move up towards the sun, like sunrise. And if I need to bring my energy down, I want to move my energy down, like sundown, or like being grounded. All right, so I'm just going to scoot back a little bit. You could do this standing or sitting. And actually, I'm going to stand up because I've been sitting for a few minutes, so I hope you'll feel free. So what we're first going to do is we're going to do a forward fold. And I'm going to go off camera for a second. Keep a slight bend in your knees. And we're going to imagine that we are touching the sand. Now, you can imagine you're touching the sand, or you can be very curious, kind, present, grounded like the earth, and literally notice what is under your feet. So I'm going to do sand. For time's sake, I'm going to go a little quickly. I'm going to roll up to standing for sea. I'm going to take my arms out and twist. And I'm seeing what's in my space, or I could imagine that I'm at the sea. And then very simply, sky, right, is to stretch my body up. So that's just a very simple somatic movement you can do if you check in. So in the weather report analogy, if we said that our weather, 2 in the afternoon felt a little foggy, and we'd want to clear that fog and bring our energy up. That's how starting low with sand and moving up can be helpful. If we were like 9 a.m. fueled with coffee, then we might want to start with sky and move down to sand. So just a quick skill to you can put in your pocket and share and that sort of thing. Okay, back to sharing screen. And so I want to integrate a little neuroscience in our presentation as we think about building trust with public health systems. Because part of the problem is, well, let me back up. So all human beings need safety, satisfaction, connection, or a sense of belonging. And this comes from the work of Dr. Dan Siegel. So, I mean, how many times have you gone into or even thought about going into a public health setting and wondered if you were going to be safe, wondered if you were going to be satisfied, and wondered if you were going to feel connected, seen, heard, respected, a sense of belonging? Now, I don't know about you, but I can say for sure I have had moments when I feel like doctors spoke down to me, didn't have time for me, didn't give me enough information. I mean, right, we could spend like the rest of the session talking about these things. So you might just notice for yourself and maybe not pick the worst experience, but like a moment when you've been in a public health system experience and have not felt safe, satisfied, or connected. You might even notice if there's a body sensation, a feeling coming up with that, and to connect to know that that's a feeling sensation of your nervous system feeling like things aren't okay. It's like a little warning bell, little red flag. And then if we want to act to heal, maybe we try to reground our bodies, right? So what I'd like us to do in thinking about how, if there are ways we haven't felt safe, satisfied, and connected in public health settings, let's take a moment or two and visualize what would it look like for me and for you and for you and for another person. Let's visualize what it would look like to feel safe, satisfied, and connected in the public health setting. So this is where the pen and pencil can come in handy. So, and paper. If you'd like to take a moment, and whether it's draw a quick picture, a quick sketch, like no one's looking at it but you, so it doesn't have to be realistic. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a symbol, right? Maybe it's as simple as like drawing a heart. Like, I want to feel respected and loved when I walk into these places, or just compassion. So what is that for you? So I'm just going to pause for a moment. I'm going to be quiet and let's just think about, right? For me, for you, what would that safe space look like in a public health setting? All right. Again, for time's sake, I'm going to ask you to pause there. And then let's just take a moment and we're going to do a quick visualization meditation on imagining what this could be. Now, as we do it, if you would like, and I know there's concurrently to my session, there's a drumming session going on. So we can do something where we tap in basically our desire for positivity, resilience. So you could either do that by tapping your legs one at a time, or you could do butterfly hug, which is where you take your hands, flip them over, cross your fingers, hook your thumbs, rest your fingertips right under the collarbones, and then just one at a time start to tap. If you'd like to close your eyes or look down to the ground, keep tapping. And just start to imagine what a safe, satisfactory, and connected public health system would look like. What would you see in this space? Notice what you would hear or not hear. What would your feet, your body, your hands be touching? What might you smell? Would you feel physically balanced? So, would your vestibular sense feel safe? And as you move through this space, would your sense of proprioception, the awareness of the chairs and the doorways, would that also feel safe? Is there anything you're tasting or noticing in this trustworthy public health space? And then here you might add on an affirmation. I can feel safe, satisfied, and a sense of belonging in public health. And if you don't quite believe that yet, then maybe the affirmation is I believe I can. I believe we could feel a sense of trustworthiness in public health spaces. So if you'd like to gently lower your hands to your lap, take a breath in, sigh it out. Gently flutter your eyes open. Maybe notice some colors around you before bringing your gaze back to the screen. I'm going to take a quick sip of water with my very colorful cup. Right. And after doing any kind of meditation or mindfulness, you might then check in and again feel, connect, act to heal. Like right now, I notice that like I literally feel more grounded after leading that. It's leading and participating in a mindful meditative visualization is a little bit different. But even just doing that and doing the tapping and feeling like stronger, literally stronger in my like upper torso area. And so maybe in this case, there's not so much anything to do to act to heal, except to remember this moment and do it again. And that's part of the action I can take is to build my sense of what I want in life and create resilience and determination. And repeating this activity can help tap that power into my body, tap the future into my body. So, speaking of, and by the way, if any of you have questions along the way, please dump them. Dump, that wasn't the right word. Please add them to the chat box. And if I don't catch them, Crystal has promised to help shout them out for me. Okay, we're going to pivot and move to verbal communication. So let's take a quick look at neuroscience part 2. And oh my gosh, I so geek out on polyvagal theory. And basically, what this taps into part of why we're feeling, why we're noticing what's happening internally. It gives us really important information. And there is some research that we feel an emotion before we can name it. So I can feel anger. I call it the heat of anger. It's like my inner volcano or my inner boiling water, like starting to boil. And if I can notice it before I'm exploding, right? Feel, connect, then I can take that action. I can act to heal before I'm like, blah, yelling at my kids. It's happened. I try to avoid it. And this work literally has helped me manage my emotions and my expression of them in much more positive ways. In any case, I diverge. So the thing about polyvagal theory is there are 3 different areas. This is super simplified. This is not the dissertation version. And what I love about this drawing is you can see how it includes the different polyvagal, meaning wandering nerves. So these 3 main wandering nerves. So we can notice that that red one is our sympathetic nervous system, right? And that's the one that is like, and all of them start at our brainstem. So the sympathetic nervous system is the one that like governs our breathing and our heart rate, and it's super automatic. But also, if we have a heightened stress level, it's what also sends the message like increase the heart rate, increase the breath rate, get ready to go, get ready to what? Fight or flight. So, also, if we are having a heightened stress response and we are in fight or flight, for a lot of us, it is not the time for someone to say, take a deep breath. In fact, I get really frustrated when I'm in fight or flight. Someone says, take a deep breath. Why? Because the sympathetic nervous system, its job in increasing my heart rate, increasing my breath, is to help me run, is to help me keep me safe from that tiger that's chasing me. Right? I don't want to have time to be like, hey, tiger, what's up? Like, this is like how we evolved. Like, you want to have tea and talk about why you're chasing me? No, 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 no. I need to like get out of there. So my body creates this burst of energy for me to go. So it makes it very difficult for us to control our breath in that time, which is part of why these somatic movements, or even if you think of some yoga poses, why they're so powerful is because they help the body ground down. Okay. And then you might notice there's this blue one, and that's the dorsal vagal. And how I remember that this is the one that's like super freaked out is a shark has a dorsal fin. I know I have to use these things to remind myself. So if our dorsal nervous system, in which you see it goes from the brainstem down into the gut, mm-hmm, like gut feeling, it's real. So, but the dorsal nervous system, when it's activated, that's when we tend to freeze, right? If you think of an animal like scared and goes to play dead, it's that dorsal vagal part of the system that's been that's turned on. People who dissociate, it's a super amazing superhero protective system. They dissociate because they can no longer process what's happening and they need to check out. So then there's the ventral vagal. And you might notice how that goes up into our face, into our chest, and down to our diaphragm. So just like a muscle, like if I want to build my bicep, I'm going to do some weights and actions and resistance to build that part of my body. If I want to tone and like activate and work on and strengthen my ventral vagal part of my nervous system, there are other things I can do with that. And one of them is because it also goes into your ears and that sort of thing. It is the way I might communicate with someone. And so, and if I can communicate with someone in a way that helps them feel safe, satisfied, and connected, then it's going to impact my nervous system. Are you with me? Okay. So let's get verbal. So, one of the things we can be aware of that can help both our nervous system and another person's nervous system, and even if we are in disagreement, is to something work on validation and validating. Now, if I validate someone, it doesn't mean I agree with them, but it means I am extending a compassionate branch to say, I hear you. I may not agree with you, but I hear you and I hear that that's important to you. So I have a little graphic here. I didn't create it. That just goes over some things about self-invalidation and self-validation. Now, why I brought this in here today is because, I don't know about you, but for me, I go into, some kind of, or I think about what's happening in the environment. The other night, I could hear the mosquito sprayers going and like, oh, I get two things can be true at once. We don't want to have mosquito-borne illnesses in the community, but what's in those chemicals, right? But I might think like, so self-invalidating in that example could be like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way because they know best. Or, oh, my feelings about that, my feelings are wrong because I'm just me and I don't know. Or it's not a big deal if they're spraying chemicals. right? So you can see how we can be self-invalidating, like, oh, I guess the doctor knows best. I don't know anything. So when we do that, that is undermining our trust within ourselves, undermining our trust within ourselves. So when we catch ourselves invalidating ourselves, we can start to notice it, disrupt it, and try to shift some cognitive flexibility and reframing to be more self validating. If I'm here in this space, if I'm here, when we used to go to the COVID vaccine, like crazy places, not crazy places, the long lines. We could choose in these spaces to be more self validating, right? I do feel this way, and it's okay. There's no wrong or right way to feel. We can work on how we react or respond to a situation, but how I feel is never right or wrong. Feelings aren't right or wrong, they just are. We get to cultivate our reaction, which is part of why that act to heal is so important. I'm allowed to feel angry, upset, confused about what happened to me, right? Hey, doctor, like I'm feeling confused right now and I need some support, right? So it kind of goes on like that. So the other part of this is then, so we just talked about our internal communication, self-invalidation and self-validation. So that's with ourselves. Now let's look at how we take that communication to build bridges with someone else, including people in our public health systems. So we might say, if I'm saying, oh, I'm feeling angry about this, I don't understand, can you tell me something else? If someone says to me, calm down, you're overreacting, it could be worse, you're being dramatic. Oh, I hate those, right? So we can switch and try to communicate in a way that's validating. Now, if we were able to like all chat and talk in here, I was going to have us do an activity. And the activity was a practice active listening, which can be very validating. And on the right hand of under validation, you can see there are some phrases that we can say to someone, whether or not, some of them, whether or not we agree. But one of the things we can do is to basically summarize and repeat back what we're hearing. Now, especially if I hear someone say something to me that has my feeling go, feeling angry, I can be curious, kind, and try to be present and grounded like the earth. So let's say there's a doctor who has said something to me and I'm upset. Maybe it's a diagnosis and I'm like, what? What's this? And maybe they say, like, you're dramatic, like, you need to stop that. And I might say, go to being curious. I hear you saying that you think I'm dramatic. Can you tell me more about that? Or could you tell me why that might be the case? Right. So being curious, like, or like, I can understand you feel like I'm being dramatic. And I wonder if we can talk about why that might be so. So it's like you're acknowledging, you're validating what they're saying, and then you're being curious, trying to stay kind and present. Now, depending on if it's a friend or a colleague, or and maybe someone in public health is talking about how, no, I'm not able to get you these medicines because there's this, there's a shortage and blah, blah, blah. You're like, wow, like that sounds really difficult. And it's even impacting me. Like, thank you for sharing with me that your experience is also that you're frustrated. What do you think we can do about this? Right? Because think of how many times we get fearful and we just want to react. So these are just some tips on how to tie in validating, even in hard situations, to build bridges, build trust as best as we can, and let the people know in the system, like, because a lot of it isn't, it's, some of the rules and things that are happening are trickling down. So the person in front of us may not be the person that is creating the rule or the issue. So who can we be with that person and try to build an alliance to get things done? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to keep going, but then I will have some time for some questions. All right. So now let's get nonverbal. So here, how we, um, nonverbal communication is considered to be more powerful and noticeable than verbal communication, right? Because you walk into a room, this like health leader walks into a room, and if they're feeling prickly, we might also feel prickly. So, how can we work with our own body and energy to manage our own social interaction, our own nonverbal cues? So first, I would like to share with you this little skill, this tool. We created this in Yogiños Yoga for Youth. That's called the 4S breath, like S as in snake. And so I'll demonstrate for you, and then let's try it together if you'd like. If you feel like you don't want to try it, of course, you don't have to. So the idea is that when we breathe in, when we inhale, we shrug our shoulders up. That's the first S. As we breathe out, we soften and we sigh, and then we smile. So shrug as we breathe in, soften, sigh, smile. And if you think about when we thought about the ventral vagal nervous system and how those nerves, the green nerves, the social interaction nerves, run into the face, the throat, and the diaphragm. So we are toning I want to be social, I want to be supportive, I want to communicate with you by toning these parts of our body, these nerves. Again, it's like building a muscle. Okay, let's give 4S breath a try. So let's breathe in and shrug. And even allow the softening to go all the way down into my like tailbone and legs, right? So put that one in your pocket. Try it if it makes sense for you. Teach it to people. Okay, the next one, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. The next two come from DBT theory practice protocol. DBT stands for dialectical behavior therapy. And it's basically this concept, the dialectic is that two things can be true at once. So even as I'm doing this, one of the ways that we know we can, and this comes from the prong of DBT of effective interaction, effective communication, effective interpersonal skills, is called willing hands. So I'm holding my hands up a little high so you can see them. But in a communication, to be like, hey, and just kind of lean forward with open hands, suggests that you are willing, or even if you're maybe feeling a little less willing, if you can conjure up that motion, your body, right, the somatic movement kind of moves you into saying, I want to lean into this. I'm struggling, but I'm trying. And the other one is we call it the eyebrow wag, which is where you practice moving your eyebrows up and down. Because in part of that also, right, it tones this vagal, this ventral vagal nerve. And so by being like, hey, like, so I've got willing hands, moving my eyebrows. So not only is it toning that feel good social interaction part of my nervous system, it's literally non-verbally communicating to you, I'm a safe person. I want to communicate. How can we communicate better? Right? All right. So as we come towards the end of our time together, so this last slide really just being for us to take a look at what questions do you have, what reflections do you have, and what actions might you take? Any golden nuggets, if you will, from our time together and how you might practice, feel, connect, act to heal to yourselves, with others, in the public health system. Like, what might that look like for you? So before I stop share, I just want to put this little slide up here. So this is Yogiños Yoga for Youth, the business I created where some of the information came from. This is some information where you can contact me. And again, I also work as a licensed professional counselor associate here in Texas. All right. So if you have any questions, comments, reflections, or want to name, right, a golden nugget, something you might take from this time together, I'd love for you to drop it in the chat box. And I know for me, um, I am going to put, this is kind of a weird one, but I just thought of it. So I'm going to set an alarm on my phone before I engage with doctors and public health people to practice that 4S breath. Oopsies. Right. And that's another actually skill called coping ahead, planning ahead. So if I know I'm going to be interacting with someone or, um, going to a doctor's appointment, I can cope ahead and remind myself to practice before beginning. Yeah, and thank you for sharing these. As someone who struggles to feel heard in health settings, I found a lot of your thoughts and simple practices helpful. Jay Denny, I am really grateful to hear that. And there's even that one golden nugget that might be useful for you in public health and beyond, right? These skills are, also really effective just in our daily lives, personally and professionally. All right. So I so appreciate this time with you. If you have anything else you want to share, I'm just going to drop my email back in the chat box. Or if you'd like to reach out and hear more or learn more practices, I would be so happy to share. And Crystal, and to the Light Festival 2025 community, I'm so grateful I could be here in general and especially on Juneteenth.
Thank you, Beth, for that wonderful and very grounding session. We will now go to a short break and we'll be back shortly for our keynote speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.